Sonny Dykes will speak to the media today at Big 12 Media Days. I want to hear how the run game is going to improve. What will the defense look like in year 2 under Andy Avalos? And how is he trying to instill mental toughness into this football team?
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. Thank you to FanDuel for helping out the show. Summer is here, but there's still plenty of opportunities to make some cash on FanDuel. You hit your first $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. I will tell you more about them later on in the show. Brett Yormark had some comments on Tuesday about the college football playoff, about the Big 12 as a conference and their depth when it comes to football and competitiveness. But we start today with Sonny Dykes and some players will be speaking at Big 12 Media Days on Wednesday. I'll have some coverage for you on Thursday and Friday. Here are the three things, or the three questions, I guess I should say, that I want to hear answered at Big 12 Media Days, whether it's myself asking or somebody else. And I want to hear from you in the YouTube comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at Simcox Steven. What is the one burning question on your mind for Sonny Dykes and this coaching staff going into a new season? I've told y'all off season, this is a big season for TCU football. They recovered nicely in the second half of last year, but since that national championship game and then losing the season opener to Colorado, they've sort of fallen out of the national landscape. Unfortunately, got a little bit of the spotlight last year when they fell to 3-3 after losing that game on a Friday night to Houston. They bounced back in a nice way, finished 9-4. Now you have to build on that. How is this team going to get back to Arlington to play for a Big 12 championship, to play for a college football playoff spot? What does that look like? That's the major question for Sonny Dykes and this team this upcoming season. How do they accomplish that? Well, the first part in my mind, and I've talked about this during the year, I talked about it in the spring and in the summer. How are you improving the run game? You don't have to turn into one of the service academies that's running the triple option. You don't even need to be a team necessarily that has 1,000-yard rusher, even though I think that'd be a very big step forward after Cam Cook led the team in rushing last year with under 500 yards. And Savion Williams was honestly the most consistent and best player when he had the ball in his hands in the backfield. They've shuffled around the deck on this offensive line a little bit. Cade Bennett coming back from an injury. He was a transfer from San Diego State. He ends up having a back injury. He couldn't play last year in his first season at TCU. He's going to be at that left guard spot. They slide Colton Deary over to center after James Brockermeyer leaves for Miami. Colton's played that position in the past, but it will be somewhat of an adjustment. They've got a competition at right guard between Remington Strickland and Carson Bruno. And then your two young tackles, presumably Ryan Hughes and Ben Taylor Whitfield. Those are your 5 or 6 guys that I think are going to get the most playing time. Are they in a better place going into this year? What is Randy Clements brought to this team as the assistant offensive line coach, as someone who's going to work with A.J. Ricker, who's been here for 4 years now? And this running back room, they decided to stay the course. Now, they let Cam Cook go. He transfers out. It's going to be a battle between Jeremy Payne and Nate Palmer for that starting running back position, I believe. You've got some interesting guys, some veteran players in Kavorian Barnes, who's a transfer from UTSA. Trent Battle, who's been around the TCU program forever and does some nice things. But I feel like both of those guys have specific roles. Barnes is going to be more of your short yardage back. Battle is a dude that can do a little bit of everything. He can start if he needs to, but he can also catch the ball in the backfield. He's good in pass protection. He can be your third down back, change of pace type of guy. And then you have John Denman, the true freshman, who is also on the roster and will have the opportunity to compete for some playing time as well. If Josh Hoover throws for 4,000 yards again, that's awesome. But I'm not sure that means this team wins more games. If they're going to win more games, it's about having balance. And really, it's just about physicality. When you have to run the ball, when everybody in the stadium knows on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1, that you need to get a first down. When you get the ball and you have a lead, you're up by 4 points with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left, and the other team has 2 timeouts. If you can get 1 first down, the game's over. Can you do it? Everybody knows what you're going to do. You're going to run the ball because you got to run that clock, or you have to at least force them to use all their timeouts. So can you get positive yardage on the ground and get 1 first down and get the heck out of there with a victory? That's the big question to me. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a Heisman Trophy or a Doak Walker finalist at running back, even though I'll gladly take that. It's about having more balance on offense. When Sonny Dykes took this job, this was a concern that I had. But I did remember those last few years that SMU played TCU when Sonny Dykes was in Dallas and the Ponies won those games. And it was an embarrassing time, honestly, for TCU football. The end of the Gary Patterson era. Those SMU teams were physical. They brought the intensity, the physicality. They were the ones that threw the first punch in those ball games. Especially in 2021, when they came into Fort Worth after not playing in 2020 because of the COVID-shortened season. They came in there and won that football game. And it wasn't that close. But they ran the ball extremely well. And they played with some nastiness up front that made me say to myself, well, am I possibly wrong here? It will be a combination of things. But you don't have the get-out-of-jail-free card that is Savion Williams on your roster. They don't really have a player who can consistently step back there in the Wildcat formation and run the ball. You also don't have Haas Haney, who was an important part of what you did last season. If you remember when they played Cincinnati and the snow was falling and it was an ugly kind of a rock fight of a game in the second half, when they had to churn the clock on that last drive, they went to Haas. I think part of that was Savion was dinged up, but they had Haney out there, and it was everybody knew they were going to run the ball type of situation, right? And they were able to milk the clock for the most part. Cincinnati did get the ball back, but they didn't quite have enough time to march down the field. So how are you improving that? What does that look like to get more balance on the offensive side of the ball? The second part of it, or the second question I'd like to see answered. Encouraging signs from year 2 of the Andy Avalos experience. Last season was strange. There were some growing pains, which you would expect from a first-year defensive coordinator. But what was odd about it to me, I felt like in that first game against Stanford, a lot of the rumors and the things in our mind, like the best case scenario things about an Andy Avalos defense, they showed up in the Stanford game. That team was physical. That defense was physical. They were flying to the football. They were pressuring the quarterback all night long. I talked to Ron Cooper, the Long Island coach, who was their next opponent. And I simply said, hey, when you turned on the tape, what did you see from TCU? And he was like, look, I knew they were a team that could score. I knew about Kendall Briles and his mind offensively, and they always have weapons and big wide receivers, good quarterbacks. That was a defense that was playing with bad intentions, was his quote. And it was hard to judge that in the Long Island game, but then UCF, SMU, they went through a stretch there where teams really bullied them in the run game, and you didn't see that pass rush. You didn't see the chaos causing physical defense that was there in week 1. I thought they righted the ship as the year went on. Well, now all those excuses of the newness of the scheme are gone. This team knows what their responsibilities are. They know what they're supposed to do. They should have a better idea of, okay, if this offense lines up in this formation, here's how we adjust. What are our checks? Wide receiver goes in motion. What are we doing? They come out in an unbalanced line, or they motion the tight end over, an H-back over to block. They got extra people on one side. How are we adjusting our alignment and our run fits to match that up. That should be second nature now. So does that allow this defense to play with more abandon? Does it allow them to play with more physicality and intensity? Devin Deal, Marcus Deal, Zach Chapman. Will we see guys that just tee off? Jonathan Backs? Who are some of the young players that we might not have in our mind right now as impact dudes who are going to walk in and make plays? Ryan Yates, kind of a sneaky, under the radar, late addition to the safety room. Has experience with new safeties coach Trey Watson, knows what to expect. Can he step in and be a dude right away? And then finally, and this is sort of impossible to answer, I wouldn't expect a great one in this type of environment, but how is Sonny Dykes working to instill mental toughness into this team? Halfway through the year last year was a gut check moment for TCU football. I came on this podcast after they lost to Houston, and the chat box on the right-hand side while I was talking was filled with people that wanted me to say out loud on this microphone it was time to fire Sonny Dykes, that it was time to move on. And I believe at the conclusion of that, I was like, look, if things continue down the path, this path, I think they should move on. They turned it around. But in that moment, I kept thinking about, and I went on a rant about it after they lost the Tech game a few years ago. All of the attention to detail, the comeback wins, the never say die attitude that this team presented in 2022 through 2023 in the first half of 2024, you didn't see it. But to their credit, they rallied at the end of last year and figured it out. And sometimes it just takes time. The UCF losses, the Houston losses, those were brutal. SMU, my goodness. I can't think of many more times as a TCU fan where I felt more down than after that SMU game. But if you learn from it and stick together, then it can end up being a good thing for you long term. Well, this is now long term. You finish the season strong. How do you apply those lessons so that you don't start the year falling on your face for a third straight season? Now, they did avoid it in the season opener against Stanford last season, but then they hit a rough patch in weeks 3 through 6. In big moments, though, that Kansas game, back against the wall, they found a way. Utah, on the road, not a lot of things going right for them. Offense was banged up. They found a way to hang in there and get it done. Defense stood on their head, only gave up 7 points. Baylor, I thought they played well, just didn't work out for them that night. Cincinnati on the road, Arizona at home, Oklahoma State. They didn't get tripped up by any of those teams. They found a way to close strong. How do you build on that and continue to drive this culture home in 2025 when we come back? Brett Yormark thinks the college football playoff is figured out. I'll tell you what the new format will be next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. Go to FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. It is summertime baseball games every night of the week. There's daily promotions and fun new ways to bet on FanDuel. It's easy to use. They have fast payouts and make regular season games feel like must-watch events. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's open on the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, new customers bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. Official betting partner of Major League Baseball and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So the first thing that happens at Big 12 Media Days each year, and I wasn't there on Tuesday, but I'll be there on Wednesday, Brett Yormark gives essentially a State of the Union address where he talks about where the Big 12 is. He discusses all their accomplishments. It's PR for the Big 12. That's what it is. And Brett, in the last few years, has made it sort of like an old school Apple presentation when they used to roll out the new iPhone, and they'd be out there and it'd be kind of casual, but you knew it was very meticulous how they did that, and they had a lot of thoughts about the branding and the future and what they were going to do. And so Yormark has brought that vibe to the league, where they're on the cutting edge of innovation when it comes to college football, when it comes to college sports. They've got this deal locked in with PayPal so they can pay their student athletes directly, and the new revenue sharing model. He had some quotes. Steven Johnson from the Fort Worth Star Telegram transcribed these. Yormark says he believes the Big 12 is the deepest football conference in America, and no conference has the same competitive depth as the Big 12. People around the country will scoff at that, but I think he's on to something. I said this when I was talking about the preseason poll on Monday. There is not a team right now that feels like they're head and shoulders better than everybody else in the league. Now, once the season starts, maybe somebody emerges as a dominant force, but I think even if they do, it's going to be this year. The selling point for the Big 12 is it's a fun league. Things happen every week. Now, unfortunately, because of the way the media machine works on the national level, if the SEC was this way, all we would hear about is how awesome the SEC is and how, everybody is raised to the same level now, and it's just great teams going at it each and every week. Big 12 basketball over the last 5 or 6 years. That's what we said, right? It's such a good league. Every night you got to be on your A game. Well, because the Big 12 is where it is in the pecking order, I think a lot of people have this belief or this narrative of like, well, it's just mediocre teams. Nobody's really that great. And so they beat up on each other. But Yormark's right. There's competitive depth here. Top to bottom, you don't know what's going to happen each and every week. And there could be a team that emerges as the leader that we're not thinking about right now. That's a good thing for the Big 12. They need to highlight that. He also said he fully expects the Big 12 to land multiple bids in the college football playoff. I mean, I would love to see that too. I don't know if I expect it, but I want to see it. The committee needs to give more respect to this league. And for those of you that say they have to earn it, I get what you're saying, but it's important to remember that it's an objective and subjective system. So yeah, TCU got destroyed by Georgia in the national title game. They also beat Michigan to get there. That needs to mean something. It has to mean something. But I digress. The Big 12, he thinks they're going to get multiple bids. And then right now, the college football playoff is 12 teams. The belief is it will eventually expand to 16. Yormark says he continues to believe the 5+11 CFP model suggested by the Big 12 and the ACC is the model going forward. He says the Big 12 teams want to earn it on the field. So the debate here is the SEC and Big Ten have reportedly, and the Big Ten has led the charge here, but Greg Sankey has been the guy out in front publicly talking about it. The Big Ten and the SEC had proposed this idea for a 16-team playoff where the Big Ten got 4 teams, 4 automatic bids. The SEC got 4 automatic bids. The Big 12 and the ACC would get 2 automatic bids. And then there will be 4 at-large teams. So the Big 12 will be at a disadvantage because they would not get the same amount of automatic qualifiers, but it would lock in at least 2 teams into the field, and then the possibility of getting more teams in the at-large situation. The 5+11 idea is your 5 major conferences, as the Pac-12 is trying to revive itself, would get an automatic qualifier. The other 11 would be just at-large bids, which is risky for the Big 12 because it does put out the scenario where only one Big 12 team would make it. And Brett Yormark keeps saying he wants the league to earn it on the field. I love that. I love that idea. I like it as a saying. We can put it on a poster board. Here's the problem. The committee is not being fair about it. Like, they don't view the Big 12 as it's currently constructed as a league that should get multiple bids. So while I understand you don't want to allow the SEC and the Big Ten to push you around and to run this show and to be the ones that have all the ideas and just tell you, hey, we're doing this, deal with it. If you want to go off and cry about it, fine. If you want to put out a public statement, fine, but we're doing what we want to do. I get why that's a problem. But this is risky because you're putting it back in the hands of the committee that has not treated you super well through the last few years. We'll see what happens. We'll see where it all lands here in the coming weeks, but they seem to think that this is going to be the model moving forward. So maybe they did come to an agreement and the SEC and the Big Ten said, okay, we'll do it your way. And we'll kind of revisit after a few years what you guys think about it in the future. When we come back, some of your thoughts on the college football playoff, media days, all coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Eric McAllister, wide receiver, Bud Clark, safety, both on the preseason All Big 12 team that's voted on by the assembled media there. I can't really say there were snubs. I mean, I think Josh Hoover put up a really good year. I understand why Sam Leavitt, coming off a playoff appearance, doing some really good things, is getting more love as a returning quarterback. And Frogs has proven on the field, but Eric McAllister, I am super excited about the big year that I think is coming for him because he had that suspension at the beginning of the season, wasn't totally integrated into the lineup until late, but once he got comfortable, he was a dude that was making plays. Now, it will be a little bit different now that Jack Besh and Savion Williams are not there also, because when Eric McAllister stepped on the field, he was not the center of attention. He will be now. That's just the reality of it. And he's going to have to adjust to that accordingly. But good to see both those guys on the preseason All Big 12 team. On yesterday's episode, some of you had thoughts. This is from Blake Murphy. This is actually from Monday when I talked about TCU being 7th in the conference. TCU deserves nothing until they can earn it. This team coach lost a lot of credibility after the national championship debacle. I mean, I agree they have to earn it. And bottom line is like, yeah, the last year and a half minus those final 6 games have been rough. I don't know if they lost a lot of credibility. I maintain, like, the national championship loss was embarrassing. But I maintain that just getting to the title game means a lot, especially in the Big 12. Now, do they need to earn back credibility? Yeah, probably so. And I can't be super upset that TCU is not on everybody's radar. But I just keep coming back to, I don't think there's anybody in this league that it's a league that is desperate, not from an optic standpoint, but there's nobody that's taken charge yet and said, this is ours. So there are a lot of teams. I mean, Texas Tech, and I listen to Locked On guys. They're good. They do a good job. They're spending a lot of money. They're investing a lot. I'm sure they feel like this is their year. Baylor, I think they feel like this is their year. Even a team like Utah, which was at the bottom of the conference last season. Okay, we went and got a quarterback in the transfer portal. We've got a coach who is very good defensive mind. He's always been very consistent. That we had a down year. We'll bounce back this year. Arizona State, which is getting preseason hype, but they're like, hey, we just did this. Okay, we lost our best player. We replaced him with a good transfer. We'll be ready to go. There's a number of teams that have optimism about where they are, and it's more than just your typical, maybe it's our year. You know, everybody preseason is kind of like, hey, this is it. Even if you're not super hopeful about your team, you're at least ready to see what the product looks like on the field, and you think you have that opportunity to have a fresh start and work with a clean slate. But for TCU, there's more there because they have these returning players. And I'm excited to hear what Sonny Dykes has to say about this spring, where they feel going into fall camp. and how the players, what they're thinking about, how excited they are as well. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, or you can also find us on your favorite podcast platform.